The world we live in today, I spend a lot of my time looking data and AI, and it's all about speed of delivery. A lot of phrases which touch the work you do, like partnership and collaboration. One you talk about a lot is education and spreading knowledge. Yes. I guess you're still educating. From when you started to now, who are you educating? Who needs to learn what? What can we teach people on this call? What does education mean to you in this?
Well, I was about to say, what was the most important, at the beginning is that education, how do you create, that awareness, around sustainability? Because lots of people have heard, obviously, the words, sustainability, ESG, carbon footprint, net zero, but what does it really mean? So you need to make sure that you end up making all that vocabulary, all the signification, the meanings of those terms into something very concrete, and then making sure that you put together some initiative that end up being very concrete, very, visual. And then people, starting saying, oh, so actually we can impact, actually those initiatives have results. Yes, they do. And then that's how you end up, having more and more people advocating, for the benefits of embedding sustainability within, your company. So we've started by creating a sustainability task force, which was, top management level, meeting every quarter in order to discuss, okay, what are our intentions, and then how do we make those intentions becoming a reality, and how do we follow up, within that process. And then also having a green champions team, which is, representative of every single department, meeting on a monthly basis to make sure that, in that case, you go from bottom up, so any initiatives that, let's say the top management was thinking about, how do you end up, disclosing, those information with the green champions that end up, being the one implementing those initiatives within their own department, learning from them about, is it easy, not easy, feasible, what should be, do, differently, and then going back up. So it's a sort of a, circle, going, up and down and bottoms up, in order to make sure that little by little, people are educated. I was, also meeting with every single new employee joining Silverstone. Not in individual session, but grouping every month all the new employees, because this is what happened at Silverstone over the last 3-4 years, is that we were almost like 100 people during COVID, and now we're over 300 people.
Right.
So you can imagine that triple the quantity of people. Some of them, with no much knowledge, about sustainability, no much knowledge about, also venue management or motorsports. So lots of education to be done. So then, yes, having those induction system, having those onboarding, training where sustainability starts, getting embedded in, and that's how you start, having that message about how do we implement that shift to zero strategy, which is our strategy at Silverstone. Okay, how do we make sure that everybody starts learning about it, understanding how they can do their part, to make it a reality?
Right, great. Hang on. So that's an awareness thing, and definitely encouragement. It feels like you got the CEO down involved. It became a must-have, not just a nice-to-have, especially with that the FIA 3-star requirement to become, to hold a license and continue as a viable business, right? Essential to all of that. Do you think people have embraced it as part of their daily job? I said at the start about that commercial element and can you blend those two together? Can it bring definitely good commercial benefits?
Definitely. Big commercials benefit. Let's say that before COVID and before we started our shift to zero strategy, when people were asking us, "Oh, do you have any sustainability policy?" No. Do you have solar panels on site? No. Do you have, are you powered by 100% green electricity? Do you have EV charging points on site? Do you recycle? Do you, et cetera?
Yeah.
Because remember that Silverstone is a venue that obviously hosts, motorsports event, but also has a big convention center, that can host events, 365 days per year, related to motorsports or not. So when we were questioned by potential clients that were looking at using our venue, to organize their events, when they were asking about our sustainability credentials, the answer was almost no. And then there is, here we realized that there was potentially a loss of opportunity.
Yes.
Because if you are competing, with others, which may have those sustainability credentials. When it comes to, similar, let's say, offer,
Yes.
well, one tick the box of sustainability,
Deciding
the other
factors start to include this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, we started realizing that actually, in that very competitive world that, we live in, having actually a very strong sustainability strategy, and then having those sustainability credentials like the ISO 14001 that we ended up, having, which is wider than the FIA 3-star environmental accreditation program. Getting into now the ISO 2012-1, which is, the same one that London 2012 had, back, almost like 13 years ago, and the one that the Paris Olympics had, last year. So that gives us, the possibility to say, look, we are very special. We are obviously, an iconic, venue. We are the guardian of British motorsports, but we are also a modern venue that, looked after the environment.
Drill into that one a little bit. So I think you've touched a little bit all the on-site things that I've seen in evidence on race day. There are water refill stations, EV charging, organic vegan food, diverse environment for the workforce, solar panels, green energy. So a lot of stuff in your control, scope 1 and 2. We'll touch in a minute on scope 3 and the suppliers, but that's how you measure. That's the data set that the world has embraced, to start with, the emissions, scope 1, 2, and 3. There are a lot of bodies looking for that data, increasing amount of alphabet soup almost of acronyms of UN bodies. You've got the FIA there. Some of the companies listening in will have their own regulators, their own industries, their own sponsors, their own. I mean, do you find is that the overwhelming part? There's an overwhelming amount of reporting to do. It seems to have moved a lot from report once a year, make a statement to the world, to more kind of in-flight data to look and find these insights and make decisions in real time that have a great impact. That's the bit that I love, the enjoyment of it, but it can seem overwhelming to those that not. What's the way to navigate through it and make good decisions for your own company with your own data, rather than being, drowning in regulation and reporting? Is there too much reporting, I guess, or too much similar reporting?
Well, I think what is interesting, is how do you end up making sure that you capture the data in a way that the moment that you need to use those data to report on one framework or the other, everything is there, and you can almost, press the button and I said, okay, FIA or UNFCCC or ISO, and how can you get all that shaped, according, to those framework without having to redo again, these all data collections. So I think, that's the key, which is, what any head of sustainability, around the world is probably, hoping, to find a solution for. But yes, that's the aim, to make sure that, you can have ownership of those data and then use the data accordingly to the reporting, frameworks that, you've signed for.
I realize that might have been a leading question, because one of the things we're definitely incredibly tightly focused on at Experienz is that collect the data once for one internal purpose and make it as simple and easy as possible to make it 80% of that report, 95% of that report. So it becomes easy for the sustainability manager to report, share the truth, but get on with the job of delivering improvements, kind of thing.
No, definitely. And I think, it's very important, to make sure that we can get, all the stakeholders involved. Because, the one thing is, trying to have one data analyst and within my team, or some consultant, that can help you, in getting all that information well collected. I think, we need to make sure that everybody contributes. We understand that reducing our carbon footprint, making the world a better place, is the responsibility of everyone. Okay. And not just one department or one manager. So how do you make sure that such, platform as Experienz, can be used by everybody, in order to have in one place everything collected, and then making it, much easy, to manage.
A useful tool that benefits everyone without being prohibitive to access it or something, within the bounds of privacy and all of that. It helps me swing back to this topic that we titled this a little bit, data as sustainable fuel. I'll try and torture the analogy a little bit, right? So I was thinking about it beforehand. So do you agree that data is, it's essential for forward movement to make progress? it's generated from a renewable source. Sustainable fuel is anyway. Data surely is, because IoT, AI, synthetic data. We're going to generate more data than ever, and it's all guided towards helping rather than harming the planet. So that data quality, improving it, making it available, visible, managing it, finding insights from it, that is, I think, the currency of how people in your job can prove that they made a difference and delivered something beyond the strategy to prove.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all about now, I mean, you're measuring impact. And then, it's not only the measure, of your carbon footprint, and obviously, saying, all these initiatives, having a real reduction, impact. There is obviously the social impact that you need to measure. The economic impact, which is obviously, the one that we usually, talk about in any organization. But I think now, we're talking more and more about that double materiality. Making sure that whatever data you end up reporting on, it's not only financial related, but that has also those social and environmental, components that, gives you a very good idea of where you are, where your company stands for. What is your values, and how do you measure success? And I think, this is, where, we need to concentrate now, all our efforts, at least as a ESG, manager, to make sure that, we start measuring success, not only on a pure financial point of view, but, looking at all the other bits, what makes an organization so special and which makes it, even more attractive, as we've talked about, getting those partnerships, in place that, probably before we would have not had.
Yeah, excellent. I've got 2 or 3 more. We're not going to keep everyone on the full hour, but this is a very rich anecdotes you're sharing. It seems like you've got a good handle, a very good, impressive handle on site, scope 1 and 2, things in your control. Let's just have a little drill into the supply chain, the vast range of suppliers I know you have at Silverstone. In those 4 years, maybe just a little comment on how it's been educating those suppliers, how important it is for them to improve and share their data and be mindful and do the right thing. Obviously, as people bringing trucks to and from, and people and burning petrol, all kinds of things. Has educating them been a challenge? Are they on board with this? Do they see benefits in it? And then, of course, the people listening in, what advice do you have to how to, I guess, unlock some of the value and the potential improvements in the supply chain with the crucial role that you have? What's your experience of that?
I think, it is, education is key. We've talked about it, and more like, the internal, education, making sure that your organization knows what we're talking about in order for them to make, the wise decision. I always say, we are what we buy. Okay. So, it's the way we, contract services, that we, purchase goods, this is where the impact is. So how do you redefine, or rethink, the way you buy, and how do you end up, asking all your stakeholders, in that case, your supply chain, to offer solutions, that can have, that, carbon reduction, as a result. So education, yes, is key. So we are organizing, at Silverstone, ahead of, the major event that we organize, always a couple of what we call contractors meeting or partners meeting, where we talk about, everything new that we do at Silverstone around the major events. But there is always, during those contractors meeting, a big part on sustainability, to try to tell them what is our intentions, what are the new initiatives, so is it about recycling? Is it about, data sharing or data collection? Is it about, how to make sure that when we start understanding better, how do they employ people? Who are they employing? We are contracting directly or indirectly more than, almost 30,000 people works at Silverstone, for the major events. Right. It's a lot of people.
Big number, yeah.
So how do you make sure that all those people know what we're trying to do at Silverstone? Because if, every single people that works for us or for our suppliers end up knowing what we're trying to do, then there is a possibility for them to impact or change slightly, the behavior that they have, the product, that they use, the equipment that they bring, in order, to make that difference. So yeah, education is definitely key. So we do those contractors meeting, we do webinars, we invite, all our suppliers, to get into the Experienz platform. We offer one-to-one, session with them if they need, some, a special support, because obviously not everybody is at the same level in terms of sustainability maturity. You've got, some people, big companies that are already there, obviously, but you've got also people that works, in very small company, maybe 2-3 people working there, that, may not have the knowledge. So the whole idea is, how do you bring, all those people little by little to a certain level that at least they understand what we're talking about.
Yes.
And then they start having, the tools to make sure that, they can tell us what they do, and then start the conversation, with all our different managers here at Silverstone to rethink, okay, how are we going to work together in the future? We now have the chance that we've got a 10 years contract with F1. So we now have 9 years, ahead, that we know that, F1 will be there. So how do we make sure that we embed, sustainability in all our contracts, with all the suppliers, procurement, in that case is key. And then make sure that contractually people start, understanding that they need to provide those data using the tools that we offer them, like the Experienz platform, to collect data in order to follow up, all those KPI that we put together, and in order, to demonstrate that we.
I was going to mention that, but I think you sort of covered it. It's sustainable procurement, getting people to do what you want them to do and what you need them to do. I think you're saying is not necessarily a black and white issue. There's people been with you a while on a journey that are interested and you can help. Some of them are small and you can help even more. Some of them may be a bit naughty and you've got to argue with them. But others, new suppliers that you want to engage with, I know you've got a policy of responsible sourcing and they're signing up to some compact of sustainable procurement. So the future, it's baked in from the start. So it's a bit nuanced, the relationships you have.
No, definitely. And then I can see that there is a question there, saying that how do we integrate sustainability into large-scale motorsports without compromising fan experience or performance standards? And I would say that actually sustainability gives you the opportunity to offer an even better, customer experience or fan experience. I think, remember that, Silverstone is the venue. We're not impacting, the way F1 is being run or the engines or, the sustainable fuel or, we don't get into that. We are at Silverstone, the venue, to make sure that, you're going to get to Silverstone the best way you can. You're going to enjoy the 1, 2, 3, or 4 days, experience, at Silverstone the best way you can. So this is what we're in charge of. Okay. So the content of what is being offered on site, might not be fully controlled by us. But the fan experience, yes, that's something that, we want to impact on. The fan experience
does include maybe you can get to the track quicker on a public transport or a bus you've laid on or bicycle or whatever than being the only person in your car in your huge car parks that stretch across.
Exactly. So we are in that case, doing like a huge operations around, bus shuttle services. This year for the British Grand Prix. We're aiming to have almost 100,000 people transported by those shuttles over the weekend, and probably 50,000 just on race day, which is almost like 1/3. We've got a capacity per day of around 160,000. So it's almost 1/3 of the people that will come to Silverstone on the Sunday of the British Grand Prix will come by bus.
Wow, that must be a huge change since 5 years ago.
It's massive, and that has obviously like a great, carbon reduction impact, knowing that we're aiming that maybe we'll have 100 electric buses within all those fleets, vehicle that would be, moving people from in and out Silverstone. So it's huge progress. Yes, fan travel is more than 80% of our carbon footprint. So this is, very important. But I think it's also important to see that we are recycling. Everything is there. That people know how to segregate. So I think it's very important for any event organizer around the world, to make sure that we embed sustainability in everything that we do, to make sure that the fan experience is special. And I think, when you go to the beach, somewhere, in Costa Brava or somewhere in Greece or, in the Maldives, you don't want to see plastics, floating around. You want a clean beach. You want, so how do we make sure that, we start, engaging with all those people, for them to help us in doing the best we do, we can. And then if they feel, that they are participant to those initiatives, I'm pretty sure that, the feedback that they will have, after, those 4 days, they will say, oh my God, Silverstone is doing it well. I love the experience that I had. So I think, this is key, making sure that whatever they end up doing at Silverstone during their stay, they're also taking it, with them and then apply it into their day-to-day. And I think this is, what we should be doing. How do we make sure that Silverstone is that platform to educate, to showcase what can be done at a larger scale, every day?
And do you think those few 100,000 people are with you that come to it? That music events like Glastonbury and Burning Man, what have you, are all into people taking their own rubbish home with them and disposing with it, having a role to play. As you say, you don't leave the beach, leave it as you found it, don't leave it worse. It's that kind of, we all have a role to play in that. Do you get that good response from people that follow those examples or use some of the facilities that you lay on?
Yeah, we who knows, maybe in a couple of years, we'll actually say the same. You know what? There is no bins at Silverstone. Yeah.
Because there's no need. Right.
So everybody takes their own rubbish with them, as you should do. You do a picnic somewhere, you take your rubbish with you. So why not doing one of the major events? People are expecting venues like us to provide those services. I'm not saying that we won't keep providing those services in the future, but I think it's an interesting conversation that we should have with our fans, knowing, hey, what is your role? You fan,
in the contract, between us,
and how do we make them part of those performance, standards that Kid Siri, was asking, in the chat. So it's an interesting way to imagine how the future of big events, will be, especially in terms of waste management.
Wonderful. Hey, Stephane, so I've got two more quick questions, but it's great to hear this passion you have for it, right? Your brain never stops worrying with ideas of this thing, which is fantastic. So my penultimate question, I guess, would be for the people listening. It feels like you've done a tremendous job. Silverstone is some benchmark in Formula One circuits, I think, a leadership role it's got and respected around the world. In those 4 years, you've achieved a lot. You've obviously challenged and tackled a lot, and some people that doubted and cynical, and hopefully convinced some of them. What do you think are the main achievements or learnings you could take from that any other, person in a similar role in motorsport or sport or any supplier could kind of take to their job, later today or tomorrow, and try and make a difference with some of the passion that you have? What do you know now that you didn't know then that they could learn from?
Well, what I don't know. What I know, even better is that, you need to keep pushing, you need to be very active, you need, to, get that passion that you may have, for sports, or that passion that you have, for the job that you do, and make sure that you've got the same passion, for sustainability. I think, we all have a role to play. We've talked about, what role, could play the fan, what role, could play, all the suppliers that we end up, contracting. We are at the moment, within, I don't know, the world, the humanity, that we really need, to start, moving the dot, much, much, much further than what we've been doing, over the last decades. There is a real urgency, and the solutions are there. The technologies, are improving, to such a quick pace that, we've got now tools that can really help us, in taking, decision quicker, and so I think, don't wait. And even though, you may not have like a full idea of exactly where you want to go and how you want to do it, don't wait to have everything or all the planets aligned before you start moving.
Yes.
Start now.
Don't wait. Be a leader, right? Not a fast follower.
And then it's a great opportunity, for your company. It's a great opportunity, to build on your reputation, to build, on those values that I'm sure, define, the company that you are. And then, yes, demonstrate, with real data, with a full transparency about where you are, what your intentions are, and then monitoring the progress. I'm not saying that, at Silverstone, we've done everything perfectly. It's been smooth. We've been skyrocketing on every single initiative that we've tried, to put in place. And then, if you're at some point you're stuck, or maybe at some point you're going backwards, well, try, to find solutions, to keep moving.
Yeah.
So, collaboration is key. We cannot do that on our own. So one sustainability manager within a company will know, solution all your problems. It's all about communication, education, collaborations, long-term vision, and yes, and start now.
Yeah, very good, very snappy. And the very last one, just projecting ahead the next year or two, Silverstone itself, it's got that unique position in the middle of the North Hampshire countryside as part of the landscape. Initiatives, stuff in place, in motion that you've got going on at the moment?
Yes,
the music events happened, but I know you're very much caring about the landscape and the environment.
Exactly. So stay tuned. I'm not sure that, while we're speaking, actually, there is some announcement, being done. So get, into our website, and our social media, in the coming minutes or in the coming hours.
Yeah.
Today is International Day of Biodiversity.
Right.
Biodiversity, it's something that becomes key within the world of motorsports. Obviously, not only, in venues like Earth's, circuit, but obviously lots of motorsports events happen to be in the middle of nature, like, a World Rally, for example. So I think, the FIA, F1, and now Silverstone, and many others, motorsport stakeholders are trying, to find ways of enhancing, the biodiversity that we have, wherever we operate. So have a look, very soon, we'll talk about how we can, support local initiatives and invite all our fans to also support those initiatives that will have, build a great legacy, within the region of Silverstone.
Yeah, wonderful.
So I'm not revealing everything yet. I'm still leaving, a little bit of
teasing the audience. Look out on your socials and visit the Silverstone website in the next couple of days, I think, or even today. Right.
Yeah, and then MotoGP this weekend, So, remember that MotoGP is also, a big event, here at Silverstone. And then, Formula One coming up, the first weekend of July. So, busy summer.
Busy summer. Right. Thank you so much for taking this time, sharing all these insights and anecdotes with the audience. Everyone, thank you for visiting. We'll release in the next couple of days, chop out some little nuggets and share it with all. So, and leave any comments on the LinkedIn feed. But thank you ever so much for joining. And Stephane, it's been a pleasure. You're a gentleman. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Thanks, everyone.